Hey, and welcome back to Hank's True Barbecue. So, gonna put the PK300 through its paces today. I'm gonna do something I wanted to do for a long time, and that's to cook a whole full pack of brisket on this PK. So, what's the challenge, you may ask? Well, for one, it is a small grill, so just fitting the brisket in there is, well, it's not going to be a stretch, but I think we're going to get it to fit. But once you have the brisket in place, we still want to do a low and slow cook, meaning I have to separate the hot zone from the cool zone. Now, if the brisket takes up the entire grill space, how am I going to divide it? Well, actually, I thought I'm going to do the same way you do in a Kamado grill, where you have a deflector plate. So instead of separating left and right, we're going to have to separate top and bottom. So I'm going to put a big metal plate on top of the charcoal. That's going to block the direct heat radiation. Then a grill grate on top of that, and then the brisket on top of that. And the smoke and the hot air is going to come up all around on the edges, then out through the top vents. So I'm going to adjust both vents, top and bottom, to have a full throughput of air and regulate temp that way. So let's take a closer look at that deflector plate. So this is the original grill grate. What I'm going to do is fill the entire area with charcoal, and then I'm going to add some unlit charcoal, like half a chimney or so, sprinkled evenly all over the surface. I've learned that by doing a few experiments and test runs, and you can also check out a pulled beef video I did a while back. I'll put a link up here for that. Now for the deflector plate, I did fabricate one like that, 5mm steel. Looks a bit rusty after a few times of use, but it still does its job perfectly. So when I place it like that, all the direct heat radiation is going to be blocked by this one. There's also some spacers or rails I welded onto that one. Then goes the second grate on top of this, and this is where I place my brisket. So hopefully this setup should work quite well. It did work out quite well when I did the pulled beef, so again, time to get that brisket on. So, speaking of brisket, let's bring it out. So this is what I'm working with right now. Nice piece of brisket, I'm guessing, I don't know, 5.5 kilos perhaps. Not quite sure, I haven't measured it, but let's take a closer look. Now this is a brand that's new to me, 1953. It's from the southern parts of South America. My favorite barbecue store, southsidebarbecue.se, they brought this in as a test, and I'll volunteer to cook it, so we'll see how this turns out, the flavor, the marbling and everything. So when cooking it, I'm just going to apply salt and black pepper and nothing else. Now, as you can see, it fits pretty well. I'm going to trim it now. It's not fully thawed yet, so in a few hours I can trim the fat off, and then apply a dry brine as usual, and then get the black pepper on tomorrow, because I'm gonna let this dry brine overnight and then get started early in the morning. So I'm planning to do a hot and fast cook. Should be done in 6-7 hours, and then I'm gonna give it a few hours rest, and that's it really. But yeah, looking forward to trying this out. And as for temp control, I'm gonna plug in the fireboard and the Pit Viper fan here to monitor temps for me. It should be a smooth ride. So after dry brining and trimming, this is what it looks like. I've trimmed quite a bit, but I usually do that on the first brisket of a new brand because I want to see the marbling, the striations, etc. It does look just a bit odd. I mean, the flat's obviously there, but the point, it looks really like, I don't know if I got an odd cut, but I don't know what the butcher's been doing, but it's kind of hard to see that. Well, you do have the point obviously up here, and this is part of the point, but I don't know, it doesn't look like what I'm used to. Bottom side, pretty cleaned up also. Just left some fat, not much. Ideally, I would have left 3 to 4 millimeters of fat on this one, but it's going to be good seeing how it tastes like. So I'm going to get some black pepper on this. And then we can get ready to smoke it. So keeping flavors really simple here. Should do it, not perfectly even, but good enough. I'm gonna get some into this pocket also. Again, it does look weird. And the flat was rather thin, so I trimmed off quite a bit. I still think some of the ends here are gonna get a bit too burnt, but we can make a chili out of that. But still interested in seeing what the flavors are like in this one. So the grill is prepped, just waiting for it to come up to temp, and then we can get the brisket on. All right, we're approaching 100 degrees, so I'm gonna get the brisket on right away. Oh, that looks like a nice fit. Perfect. Get that probe right in. All right, I'll check back in a few hours. I'm gonna set the fireboard, and in like 2 hours or so, I'm gonna check on the bark to see if we need spritzing or anything. But for now, I think it's time to close the lid and just let the smoke do its job. Time for a quick check. We're 2 hours into the cook. Top vents are set to 50%, bottom vents fully closed as I'm using the Pit Viper. But let's see where we are at. Man, that's looking good. Nice progress. Gonna spray the flat just a bit, just checking on bark, but this is gonna need quite a few more hours. All right, let's close the lid. So, time to do another check on the brisket to see where the bark is at. I've been cooking for 4.5 hours exactly right now. I said early on I was going to do a hot and fast cook, but then my schedule for today changed a bit, so I needed some extra leeway, so I decided to cook on 120 degrees Celsius instead, which is like 250 Fahrenheit. So, thanks to the Fireboard 2 and the Pit Viper fan, this one's been rocking like rock steady at 120 plus minus 2 degrees, which is just perfect. That's the type of babysitting I expect to get from the Fireboard and the Pit Viper, so I'm exceptionally happy. So before I open the lid, just a few words on the cook so far. I mean, this whole separating the hot and the cool zone with the deflector plate works very, very well. This brisket isn't the biggest one, but clearly you can see that I can fit an even bigger brisket on this one, and that's the whole point of this cook. Small grill, but still that shouldn't limit you from doing what I would call a big cook. And it's kind of fun to put the PK through its paces. So far, it's rock steady. I'm really happy with it. So let's check on the bark, see if we need to wrap or something. Most likely yes, but I'm gonna take a look and eyeball it first. Another thing that's worth mentioning that I've been looking at is the probe that goes into the meat. It actually says 86 degrees Celsius, which is a bit too high. Well, actually, I think it's too high because normally you don't get up, the temp doesn't climb up that fast in such a short period of time. So what I'm suspecting, based on my experience with all the other brisket cooks, is that the probe has actually hit a fat pocket or something. So I'm going to check with the thermopen instead, probe the brisket in a few places and see where we are at. All right, looks like it's barking up properly. Still not dry or anything. Good thing I spritzed the flat a bit here. I'm gonna check the temp, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna wrap this one. Yeah, 80 degrees Celsius, 82. Point should be a bit after because it's a lot thicker. Definitely. What do we have here? 59. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it for moisture because it didn't have much marbling anyhow. So I'm gonna close it in and get back out here with some aluminum foil. So now that the brisket is wrapped, I'm gonna crank up temp a bit because now all we need to do is bring it home basically. So I'm gonna bump it up to 130 or 140, we'll see. And then we should be done within an hour and a half to get it up to 95 roughly. But I'm gonna probe it, check it for tenderness. So once that's done, into the faux cambro, rest it a while, and then a good 2-3 hours, I'll see, depending on when dinner is tonight. Then we can slice it up and taste it. So the brisket is done a little over 6 hours. I'm gonna drop it into the faux cambro as per usual because this is part of the cook. I'm gonna leave it in there for 2.5 to 3 hours and we'll take it out and start slicing. So since it is done, I'm gonna pull out the temp probe without burning my fingers because I left the glove somewhere. And time to get this bad boy into the resting cambro. All right, that went smooth. Put the lid on. All right, since we're done cooking, might as well just take a quick look to see how much charcoal is left. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of charcoal left. Pile this up and get that grill cleaned out. So this is what it looks like. Quite a bit of flat, not much point, but let's slice it up and see what the flavor is like. I'm also going to try and save all this au jus, pouring it over in that bowl, because that's going to be real nice to add on the plate afterwards. So I managed to transfer the juice. That should be okay, so let's just slice this up. Again, it looks like 80% flat, so very odd brisket, but we'll cut through and see what it's like. That's what you have to work with. Nice, juicy at least. Just a bit of smoke ring. But again, it's all about the flavor, so let's check that out. Here's a real good view of the flat. You can see this very thin point on top of the flat actually, so at least that's good. I prefer the point because it's richer. Looks tender enough, pulls apart quite easily, not much pull, which is really good. Point looks good, just a bit richer. There's still some fat cap in here. I didn't remove that altogether because I was afraid it's gonna fall apart. So, but you never know when you try a new supplier. But let's give this a taste test. So let's give that flat a try. Again, really moist, nice to see. I think this is where the simple flavoring with black pepper and salt really shines. So I would say good traditional beef flavor. A bit too lean, I think, so I'm gonna dig into the point instead and see what it's like. Again, you see this big old gap almost. Really looks kind of like the flat really curves up around the point, but you can see, looking at the texture of the meat here, how it changes when it goes from flat to point. But I mean, the flavors there, it's really good, it's really moist, but I would say tender, but I would prefer more into muscular fat or marbling. This is kind of like a selector choice brisket instead of a prime brisket. Still good eating, really nice. Cooking it on the PK like I did with a deflector plate worked really well, so I think we're going to serve this with some sauerkraut and some pickled cucumbers. But thanks for watching. See you guys next episode.